Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto.
In a world on the brink of disruption, two men will bring you clarity by interviewing some of the most intelligent and influential names in the blockchain world. Welcome to Show Me the Crypto with your hosts, Wade Patterson and Ulf Lonergan.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Show Me the Crypto. My name's Wade Patterson.
And I'm Ulf Lonergan.
We're a couple of friends from Canada who love learning about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, and we're happy you're along for the ride. Whether you're a crypto virgin or you know your way around the block, we hope our interviews with some of the most intelligent and influential people in the blockchain space help bring you value. And on this episode, we're joined by Cooper Turley, head of crypto strategy for Audius, a music streaming protocol built on Ethereum. With a degree in music business, Cooper witnessed firsthand how cutthroat the industry can be. His discovery of crypto, and more specifically smart contracts, led him to dream up alternatives to the old ways of doing things, and he began to discover ways in which fans, artists, and curators alike could collectively share in the upside, both financially and socially. Beyond leading crypto strategy for Audius, Cooper is a contributing writer for the Defiant, editor at DeFi Rate, a social token manager, and an NFT collector. Cooper, welcome to Show Me the Crypto.
What's up, guys? Thank you so much for having me.
Really stoked to have you on. And as I mentioned in the bio, that's an interesting background with music business. So were you always kind of thinking up alternatives to the old ways of doing things?
I was always very entrepreneurial. In high school, I was selling Pokémon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh cards and whatnot. I was very free-spirited and liked to just kind of find creative ways to make money. And so music was an interesting one for me because it was a passion I had and something that a lot of people viewed as just sort of a hobby. But for me, being able to get deeper into that space and figure out how to help creatives, I always found a lot of interest out of that.
That's nice. Cooper, for someone who is selling Pokemon cards, I got to ask, I'm not sure how old you are, but at what point in your life were you first introduced to Pokemon cards?
Probably when I was 8 or 9 years old. I remember going to the store after my soccer games as a little kid and getting packs and stuff, and it just being such a fun experience. I think I would get to buy one pack for every goal I scored, and so I was definitely motivated with the right incentives to play well in soccer.
Nice. In my elementary school, when I was introduced to Pokemon cards, the craze at that time was so wild that everybody had Pokemon cards and everybody wanted Pokemon cards. And because it was elementary school, there was a big level of difference in people's capabilities comparing a grade 1er to a grade 6er, and so they actually had to ban the cards completely because the grade 6ers were basically making poor deals that would work in their favor, and then they would screw over the youngsters and get their Pokemon cards. They'd play for keeps, as they said. So did you experience any of that in your school?
Yeah, I had my fair share of good trades with my younger brother, I'll say that much, but I'd say that's about the full extent of it.
Nice. Awesome. Well, we'll move on from Pokemon cards here. When specifically did you discover cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology?
Yeah, so you mentioned in that bio, I went to school for music business. There was a class I had where a professor was teaching us about, just Bitcoin and Ethereum. And as mentioned, smart contracts came up in conversation then. This was before I had really looked at Bitcoin seriously. I remember 2013, just hearing about it from some friends that were trading it, but just kind of wrote it off, didn't think too much about it. It was early 2017, I guess, when I started thinking, there's something here that's more than just a random offshoot that you shouldn't pay attention to. So I went in and just read Bitcoin white paper, read the Ethereum white paper, and it made a lot of sense to me. That concept clicked with me right away. Obviously, I think that in practice, it's a lot harder to implement. But, that theory of being able to pay artists directly, being able to route payments in real time, make splits accordingly with no middlemen, that was, immediately interesting to me. So I didn't quite take the form of that. Truthfully, my entry into crypto is more on sort of the speculation side, trading tokens, learning about ICOs and whatnot. But it was a good foray. And like I said at the top of the call, I love this entrepreneurial spirit of crypto and being able to really make your own career. And so, I just kind of dove down the rabbit hole, and the rest is history.
That's awesome. I want to spend a lot of time in this conversation talking about NFTs, which stand for non-fungible tokens, and because it's getting a lot of hype. I mean, even the likes of Gary Vaynerchuk, it seems like every second tweet from him is regarding NFTs. So for the benefit of our audience, because we gear the show for those brand new to the space, do you mind explaining what an NFT is and why they matter?
Yeah, for sure. I like to describe NFTs as scarce digital content. So the same way that you could have a Mona Lisa in the physical world, you can now represent that online thanks to blockchain and crypto tokens. So non-fungible tokens is what NFTs stand for. This just means that every token is unique. An analogy I like to use is I could trade $1 for another dollar, but you wouldn't swap my car with your car because they have completely different characteristics and properties. And so that's kind of what NFTs are from a high level. I think what we're seeing today is that a lot of creative people have found something in crypto that really resonates with them. And for the first time, honestly, in history, there's something like of value for creatives in the world. And it's not just about, what token should I buy? What coin should I speculate on? It's more about how do I use this technology to advance my brand? And I think that that's got a lot of people really interested.
You mentioned that an NFT is a scarce digital asset, but for those who aren't familiar, and maybe you can explain, because honestly, I'm not too familiar with how it all works, but you can have an NFT and attach it to a physical item in the real world as well, can you not?
People are trying to figure out how to do that. What we see today is that there are physical components that come with some of these NFT drops, but they're not inherently linked. There's a couple like rare examples where people have like chips in the jackets or something that show that it's linked to an NFT, but that bond between digital and physical is pretty trusted right now. Right. Someone could very easily sell their physical version of something, and the NFT in the digital form would not be transferred with it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sticking to the basics here, where would somebody go to find these NFTs? How are they minted? How does that process work?
Yeah, so the ones that are most popular today is probably Nifty Gateway. This is a site that lets you view drops that happen, almost like Supreme style drops, and we're seeing a lot of interest over there. Some other marketplaces I'd recommend checking out would be SuperAir, Foundation, Zora, Rarible, and OpenSea. That's 5 that I mentioned. There's about 50 of these places you could go to find NFTs, but I think those are kind of the most popular. When it comes to minting them, we see kind of 2 sides of the spectrum. Something like Nifty Gateway, that company will actually mint for you as a part of like the service that they offer. They give you a specific date, you define the quantity you want to release and the structure of your drop, and it's very, orchestrated. Versus something like Zora or SuperAir, where once you are on that platform, you can release at your choosing. They're all one-of-one images, and so you price it yourself, you release at your choosing, and that minting process is handled by you, which means that in order to put that NFT up, you have to pay a transaction fee in Ether to upload it to the blockchain, I guess would be the analogy that I'd use.
For someone new to the concept of NFTs, who's maybe like an artist, a creator of some kind, how... and let's take a step back here. If that person works primarily in traditional art, physical form, like let's say they're doing paintings or something, is there a way that they can take advantage of this today? Or because of the challenges you raised, is it kind of like, unless they get into, creating digital assets, it's maybe something that is for, somewhere further down the line?
I've seen people taking like pictures of their physical work and like uploading those as NFTs. I'm not gonna lie, it's definitely a lot harder for physical work only to be represented fairly here. You can actually see behind me, I'm sure the listeners can't see, but I have some pictures on the wall. Those were Foundation, before they were in NFT marketplaces, they were selling physical items. So like there would be paintings and you would buy them as a token. In order to get the physical paintings, you would burn the token to get the physical work. And so there's kind of some workarounds here where those tokens weren't NFTs, they're fungible tokens, but they were linked to a physical good. And that property of like, there's 100 of these tokens, you buy one and then you burn it to redeem the physical work. It's pretty close to an NFT. And, that's kind of what I've seen people do as sort of a workaround to that specific element of needing it to be physical.
So you're an NFT collector. What's your favorite NFT that you have?
I have one called Generate by Fuck Render. He's this really amazing graphic designer. Recently, he built out this entire digital universe. And, I've gotten to be close friends with him through my NFT collection. And I think that he's just such a visionary in this space. Right.
And I want to get into Audius and how that works, and this idea of NFT drops and how you can have some form of audio drop. So what is kind of the purpose of Audius? What is the goal there?
Yeah, Audius's purpose is to better connect creators with their fans. In a world today where you don't really get any information about your listeners, it's very hard to make money and it's very hard to get your music heard. We want to offer tools and ways for creators to be able to release exclusive content and build deeper communities. And so what that looks like today is similar to what SoundCloud felt like in 2013, where there was this very vibrant culture of producers releasing remixes, people going out of their way to discover new music. And we just sort of want to incubate that spirit of like creativity and discovery and allow artists to sort of build careers and brands on the back of like this really niche group of followers so that they can sort of have this core group of true fans that support them in everything that they do.
Who are some of the artists that are getting on board with this concept?
Skrillex is on the platform now. Flex Pavilion put his EP up recently. There's a lot of big names that I could list off here, but I think it's actually cooler like the smaller names. So we have some acts like Camafly that are up there, and like these artists you've never heard of that have really incredible sounds. And what we're seeing now is that they're actually choosing to release on Audius first, like over a SoundCloud or a Spotify or something like that. And so there's kind of one end of the spectrum, which is really big DJs that everyone's definitely heard of. And then the other end of the spectrum, it's these new up and coming acts that I'm personally far more excited about. They have a lot more to gain and they're a lot more open to trying out this technology and like learning about crypto because they need it a lot more than someone who already is super, super established.
I saw you talking about this in another interview. And do you mind, for the benefit of our audience, just kind of breaking down the traditional music industry and the slice of the pie that artists get with that system compared to what's possible with something like Audius?
For sure. Yeah. From a high level, I'd say the artists get about 12% of all revenue that's generated for their project.
Wow.
An example I like to use, if I stream a song on Spotify today, that payment goes into a black box for about 6 months. And when it's time to distribute it, it gets distributed pro rata amongst all artists on the platform. So if you're paying $10 a month for Spotify and you listen to only my music, you're actually spending about 90% of that music on Drake, probably closer to like 99%, that top 1% of artists. And so with Audius, as I mentioned earlier, with smart contracts, we want to create direct payment channels. So that means that if I stream your song, you're going to get that royalty payment in real time and you're able to sort of customize that rate. And for me, I think this is really powerful because I used to manage a lot of artists and, the uncertainty around getting paid for music, not knowing how much you're going to get paid, when you're going to get paid, where you're going to get paid to, if it's PayPal or if it's a check in the mail. There's just all these like really annoying variables. And so I think for us, we really just want to expedite that process and give artists like confidence and clarity that as their music is heard and as their rates are set and, purchased by other listeners, that they're going to see that return in real time.
Speaking on music and NFTs, is Audius, does it function in a way where are these songs NFT related at all, or is that a whole nother kind of subject?
Yeah, it's a whole nother subject. All of the content that lives on Audius does live on the blockchain. It has distributed storage and it's hosted by node operators on the network. So instead of Audius as a company hosting it on an AWS server, we have node operators from all around the world that are staking platform tokens to be able to secure the network. And so that at its core is like really important, I think. To the NFT point of view, no songs on Audius are NFTs today. We're working really closely on like how we integrate NFTs into our platform, both from a discovery and distribution perspective. So if I'm an artist and I collect NFTs, or if I've made my NFTs, we want to allow listeners to find that. I think that the coolest thing about Audius, we have about 2 million monthly active users right now, which is top 2 or 3 of any Ethereum application that exists today, all of which have an Ethereum wallet and they don't even know it. And so for us, it's kind of interesting to use that as like a Web3 hub almost, so that when they come to the platform, they don't feel scared off. You log in with an email and a password. But when these cool things like NFTs and social tokens come up, you can lean in and discover that without feeling like you're diving like 1,000 feet down the rabbit hole and like just completely overwhelmed by what's going on.
Have there been any challenges? I mean, when we talk about Ethereum, a lot of times the gas fees come up and those challenges. And for example, my own personal example here, there's a guy who I saw, he's a great public speaker, and he minted his first NFT. And I'm like, I want to buy this because just even for my own collection, right? I thought it would be really cool to own it. And it was something equivalent of $10 US. And then I go through the process and gas fees were 160 US. And I'm thinking, you know what? Like, I'd even consider paying that, but I don't want to pay that in gas. Like, I'd rather give that to the actual speaker and that kind of thing. Are you seeing any challenges from that point of view?
Tons of challenges. Whether it's the creator that's actually having to create the NFT, you probably need at least $100 in gas just to upload it in the first place. And there's no guarantee that that's actually going to sell. And then on the collector side, as you mentioned, placing a bid these days ranges from anywhere from like $30 to $150, as you mentioned, depending on gas prices. So it's definitely a huge problem. I've seen like platforms like Nifty Gateway sort of abstract this by doing everything a little bit more centralized, where when you place a bid, you're just clicking a button. There's no on-chain transaction. It's kind of recorded in the back end, similar to another centralized exchange. And so there's some people working on it. There's a lot of layer 2 solutions that are working hard on this, but realistically, none of those are ready for prime time yet. So I'd say for about like everything outside of Nifty Gateway, yeah, there definitely is that big problem of gas costs to be able to mint and purchase these things.
Yeah.
And for NFTs that are, we just talked about, music artists creating NFTs. What does that look like? Because originally we were talking about NFTs as a form of, maybe primarily in our examples, artwork. But how does it work when it's a different type of digital asset, when it's audio or video or something along those lines?
Yeah, so they share a lot of the same elements. The ones that I like the most are audio reactive NFTs, which means that there's an audio clip that's tied to a visual component. And the same way you kind of see these canvas arts on Spotify, being able to link that directly with the sound and have these like perfect loops of like 30 seconds or so, a little snippet or teaser of the clip. That's kind of what we've seen today. In the past couple of weeks, what I've noticed is that artists are uploading full music videos or tracks to something like Zora, where they'll have like a 3-minute song and then maybe it has a still cover image or maybe it has a little video attached to it. But, there's no sort of like strict requirements around what that is for a musician. You could do anything from your album cover art to a selfie of yourself to a video of you making the song. It's really in the eye of the beholder. And so in my personal point of view, so long as there's some sort of audio component that you've created, I think that meets the checkbox for, what it means to do a music NFT.
Right. Okay. And so I get that from kind of in addition to our music we put out, here's those added collectibles, fan things that you can get. But would it ever make sense? And maybe it wouldn't, but would it ever make sense to be for a musician to put out, let's say, an album, and of that album, it consists of all, like, could they sell it all as NFTs? Does that ever make sense? Is there a world where that might happen in the future?
Yeah, this is like the really interesting piece of the puzzle. I think that today it's a very scary thing to only release in Web3 because it's such a niche audience. I think that there's definitely going to be a world in which songs live exclusively on the blockchain, only on like the form of NFTs or on platforms like Audius or something like that. Today, I'll be honest, that doesn't really happen yet. But I think what's cool about that form of releasing is that you can then assert royalties directly to the owners of those NFTs. So with Zora today, you can do fractional ownership. And if I release my album exclusively on Zora as NFTs, when people go out and purchase that, there's a resale fee that happens every time. So from now through the end of history, every time someone trades it, I'm going to get a fixed percentage that I define in Inception. And so being able to have that as like a core primitive, it kind of guarantees as the artist that if this NFT is traded amongst people, if it sells for a lot, I'm going to be able to get a cut of that. And I think that premise is really, really powerful, and something that I expect a lot more artists to lean into in the future.
One of the ways you described NFTs in the beginning there was, the cash example versus wouldn't trade car for car. Where do you see this going beyond? Because collectibles is always the first thing that gets brought up. Music's a little bit more niche, but I've heard an insurance policy could be an NFT. Like, how far do you see this going?
I think any form of content on the internet can and should be an NFT. Should might be a little bit aggressive, but anything that should have like rarity or scarcity to it or some form of like, you don't want people to be able to freely copy this. You need to have ownership with it. I think anything in that box, fits the category of what would make for a good NFT.
What about, like with collectibles, it's an easy concept to think of, okay, I get it. You want to collect something, it's rare. You can think of it like hockey cards. You go to the store, you buy a pack of hockey cards, great, you got some collectibles. You can do the same type of thing with NFTs. But what about when we're talking about not buying the original from the artist or from, the creator, but rather that this whole peer-to-peer trading sort of mentality where things will go to multiple hands because one person might have held it for a while, then they sold it to the next, or they traded it to someone. I guess I'm just curious how that all works today, and if that still needs a lot of room to grow in the future as well.
I think that the ways these platforms are set up today is really good in the sense that you can very easily see if you're buying like the actual original NFT or not. You can kind of link back to the creator and be like, okay, even though someone else owns this, I know for a fact I'm buying the real one. There still is a lot to be figured out in terms of like copyright, and licensing of these NFTs. And we saw on Zora on Rarible really early on, people were kind of uploading content that they didn't have permissions to, and there wasn't like a lot of copyright, protection for a lot of these creators. And so we definitely see that being a gray area today. I also see a lot of people using like brands and work that they probably shouldn't. So like animated Pokemon cards, for example, when they don't have the rights to do that from Nintendo, stuff like that does exist today. And so we have to figure that out. But for the most part, if you're on one of these curated platforms like a Nifty Gateway, like a Foundation or a Super Rare, those artists have really high reputations to uphold. And in the event that you can be blacklisted from uploading, there's a kind of a, that if you break the rules or if you do something that you're not supposed to with licensing, you're probably going to get reprimanded for it. So that's been a good enough fix so far.
Ulf, do you realize that our audience has either been watching or listening to this episode for 20 minutes?
20 minutes? They should probably subscribe.
Yeah, they should subscribe and they should like and comment and hit that notifications bell.
Oh, and did you tell them about the NFTs?
That's right. We have our own NFT for our OG supporters. This is a way you can support our show, help us bring you continual great content. Information on that is below.
One thing that I've been wondering, I've kind of mentioned this to Wade before, but with how hyped NFTs seem to be right now, they're all over crypto YouTube. A lot of people are talking about them and it's awesome. But is some of this hype maybe just fear of missing out and kind of like Beanie Baby syndrome where, everybody wants to buy anything that comes out that's an NFT right now because they feel like, well, it's got to be worth something. It's an NFT. I mean, I personally seen some of the artwork that I get art's subjective, but it looked like a joke, like he could have done it up in MS Paint and then you go list it as an NFT and it sells for like 50 ETH. And it's like, what? That mind boggling. It doesn't even make sense. I mean, is there a bit of that going on, you think, in your mind?
Yeah, definitely more than a bit. I think right now, a lot of people are just trying to buy any and every NFT that they can to be a part of the trend. As someone who's been collecting for like about a year and a half now at this point, the mentality around it has drastically changed. If you go on Nifty Gateway today and you look at these drops that happen at 4 p.m. PST every day, all of them are, minting crazy amounts on the open editions. All these things are selling out. There's vibrant secondary markets. And to your point, I really don't think a lot of people understand what they're getting into. I think they think that NFTs are hot and that they can just flip everything. I tweeted yesterday, though, that just because you buy something off the primary market, it doesn't mean someone's going to be willing to buy it off of you on the secondary. And so trying to help people understand that, just because you're the first to buy an NFT when it drops on Nifty at 4 p.m., that doesn't mean that you're buying a good one or that people are going to be interested in buying it later. And so unfortunately, there's going to be kind of a steep realization sometime soon here. I imagine in the next couple months where people are like, oh shit, I just spent $1,000 on this NFT and no one wants to buy it off me. Like, this is a scam. But kind of my challenge to that would be like, no one's asking you to buy these NFTs. Like you really do have to be doing your own research because just the same as with any token out there, NFTs are harder to flip. It's not like it's a fungible thing where you can go and sell it on Uniswap with no permission. You need to find one specific buyer who really likes this piece of work. And like that process of being able to sell is much harder and something that people really need to keep in mind when they're just sort of YOLOing into these NFTs, expecting that they're going to be able to make a quick flip on them.
I made the mistake of that. I remember when the big hype was getting like .crypto on OpenSea. And so I went and like got a bunch and I was like, oh, crazy. And then, yeah, I'm still sitting on those. But I mean, it's still kind of a cool experience to do it.
Domain squatter over here, huh?
yeah, exactly. With regard to, you're someone who is early in this space and was able to see where it was going, but the hype has picked up quite a bit. What do you make of that? Like I mentioned earlier, the likes of Gary Vaynerchuk and Mark Cuban making his own NFT. What are your thoughts on the way this is picking up into the mainstream?
It's really exciting to see the tech being considered seriously for something outside of the speculative use cases of it. Obviously, as we just talked about, NFTs are in a bit of a bubble right now, but Mark Cuban in particular, if people haven't listened to his podcast on the Defiant or One Confirmation, I'd highly recommend it. He was so well versed in this subject and crypto in general that it gave me a lot of confidence that he wasn't here to just sort of ride a trend. I'm less convinced about someone like Gary Vee. I think he's just kind of hopping on board because it makes sense for his brand. But I think across the board, outside of crypto, the conversations I'm having with major labels, major managers, major artists, people are really, really fascinated by what's going on now. And especially in the absence of touring and the absence of these IRL revenue streams, NFTs are sort of this solace that people can be creative in and feel passionate about. And so I think that the fact that all of these really big people are getting really inspired and excited by crypto, it's kind of showing me that there's more here than just flipping shit coins left and right. Granted, I think that this is a dangerous game we're playing in. I'm starting to see a lot of ICO indicators that people are using NFTs for capital formation above and beyond what they should be doing. But it's definitely cool to see that they're at least playing around with the tech in the first place.
How do you think that in the future people will display or showcase their NFT collections? I mean, I know that there are ways now, but what do you see that looking like?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be twofold. You know, the rise of these digital worlds like Sandbox and crypto voxels and Decentraland is one way. I don't think the listeners will be able to see this, but I have a framed version of my Beeple NFT right here.
Cool.
And this is like a digital frame. You know, it's something that I can hold and see, and it like moves, and it has a QR code that links to my NFT that I own and whatnot. And so stuff like that I think is really incredible. You know, you can kind of go to the physical with it and be like, hey, I own this picture, and then like link to it on the blockchain and show that. And so that's like the way that I've been displaying my NFTs. I think moving forward as we get into sort of a deeper digital age, you know, the same way you have an Instagram profile, I think that you'll have an NFT profile and be able to like flex that off. And, you know, the ownership of it's so important because you could like list someone else's NFT in your profile, but if you click on it and it's not yours, you just look like an idiot. And so like there's going to be sort of this learning curve, in my opinion, where, you know, your NFT portfolios are like really, really exclusive and people are able to have like really big followings just based off of what they own and what they collect.
How do NFTs live on the blockchain? Like when you say they live on the blockchain, is it so I assume that it's not the full file, it's more you know, it's the information that connects it to that file. Is that kind of right, or can you explain that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the metadata of the NFT commonly lives on like a distributed file storage system. So that's like kind of in the ether, it's being distributed somewhere that's not on a centralized server. The more important part here is that the token that is pointing to that metadata has an owner. So you can always go and see what wallet that NFT lives in. And based on people being able to prove that they own that wallet, they can then say, oh, I definitely own this NFT because you can see this token. And when you click on that token, it points to this original file as defined by the creator. You know, we're starting to see ways that creators are signing in the metadata to be like, hey, this is my NFT that I made. It has these qualities, these characteristics. It's for this work on this date and time. And so like over the next year here, we're going to see a lot of movement around like the advancement of metadata and being able to make these NFTs and their descriptions like far more granular so that people can always be sure that, you know, they hold the real thing and that they can prove it with like very fine detail that it belonged to the original creator at some point in time.
Gotcha. In regards to NFTs and blockchain gaming, this is often, you know, we talk about cards and stuff, but also it's one of the common use cases that people bring up is like buying skins for your characters or items in the game. And I'm kind of curious because I hear this all the time. And the more that I've learned about it, I'm like, man, that sounds like it just makes so much sense. Like, it sounds like it makes sense for content creators who can actually like modders of in the gaming community. It sounds like it makes sense for the actual developers if they enable modders and they create this marketplace where if they're taking royalties on every item that's created in their game or something along those lines, it could probably be really financially a great move for them as well. So with all that in mind, you know, why are there no major games yet that use it, that use NFTs?
I think scalability is a big problem here. You know, as we alluded to earlier with being able to buy and sell NFTs, today what that would look like is a project having to spin up their own network, you know, basically create a layer 2 solution or some sort of bespoke like gas environment so that they could actually mint these NFTs at scale. You know, we see like a lot of niche specific games right now, like Axie Infinity, that have become really popular in the crypto community because it has all those properties. You know, you own the monsters in the game. Those monsters can earn you tokens with real financial value. And so, you know, I've talked to quite a few people working at some pretty major gaming companies, and they are very aware of what's happening here. I think it's more a question of like, how do we integrate this in such a way that it makes sense for our bottom line? Because there's a lot more expectations from, you know, stakeholders than there are with some of these smaller crypto games where they can be more versatile and flexible about their implementation.
Yeah, that makes sense. It sounds like to me that gas is probably one of the main issues. You know, the cost of minting all these items in itself would make that financial aspect unsustainable, I imagine.
Yeah, and key management. I think that's really important here too. You know, I think that all of us in crypto are kind of used to like sign up for MetaMask, write down 12 seed words and never lose them, because if you do, you lose all your assets forever. But like someone who's coming on to Call of Duty for the first time, you know, if they have to write down some words before they can even play the game, like, you know, you're going to lose a lot of people. And so I think it's really a matter of like onboarding and UX, and then those gas challenges too. And it'll get there. You know, no doubt in my mind, 3 to 5 years, you'll turn around and every single game will have NFTs in them. whether or not it's just kind of like a collectible souvenir that does nothing, or whether it's, the most rare item in the entire game, TBD. But I think that latter example where, the rarest items in all these games are fungible and tradable, like that's kind of where things get really interesting to me.
I mentioned in the top in the bio that your involvement with social tokens. So what are those and how do they work?
Yeah, social tokens are tokens that represent a brand, individual, or community. And so in the same way that we see tokens for something like Ethereum today, you can imagine, an influencer or community having their own currency and being able to share that among their fans to sort of collectively capture the upside of that community's growth. And so, it's kind of very playful right now. Like there's a lot of Discord groups that have a token to be able to get into it. I manage a couple social tokens myself, and it's really more about, how do you form strong relationships among community members, and how do you give them a financial asset to align behind so that everyone has skin in the game, and as the value of that community grows, so does this token that has the financial value as well.
And what are one of those social token platforms? I know there's a couple out there to enable content creators, for example, to generate their own social tokens and utilize those.
Yeah, so there's two things here. There's a big difference between issuance, which is like making a token, and then sort of like distribution and maintenance. So how do you actually make that token valuable? To answer the question directly, Rally is a great platform to issue your own social token on. There's a platform called Roll to do this, and then there's a couple other popping up like Coinvise, Fan Club, Mintgate, et cetera, et cetera. So in the same way with NFTs, we mentioned that there's a bunch of platforms that you can make and find NFTs. There's sort of the same thing happening with social tokens today. And the reason I bring that up is because I think that, the ongoing sustainability of these tokens is entirely dictated by how involved the creator gets with it. So you can make a token for your community, and if you do nothing again ever, that token will have zero value. But what I do with the creators I work with is someone like Roll or Rally will like mint the token, distribute them to the creator, and then it's my job to come in and say like, okay, how are we actually using this in this community? Like, what are the perks and benefits you get from holding X amount of tokens, and how do you center a mission statement around this community so that there's ongoing interest and value around it, and it's not just kind of a flash in the pan like, hurrah, we made a token, but then you go on the Discord and no one knows what it is or is doing anything with it.
Can you give us some of those examples? Like what are those type of rewards you get for, holding more of those social tokens?
Yeah, so the primary one that I'm working with today is called Friends with Benefits. The social token is called FWB. You need 55 to get into the group, and once you get in, you'll find this very vibrant community of culture crypto creators. And so in the introductions channel, you'll see all these people from all these different disciplines, like designers, artists, musicians, creatives of all likes and forms. And beyond getting to meet those people and sort of have conversations because you're aligned with this token, we have an NFT channel, we have a social token channel, we have some Substack newsletters that we've subscribed to, and if you hold tokens, you can get access to those. And so, things like this are really cool. We have coffee times every Wednesday where someone in the group will host a guest speaker, and you can come and hang out with them for a little bit, and just creating that communal experience. That's kind of on the more like grassroots side of things. And then the other one I'm working with right now is REC social token. REC is the name of the ticker. And someone like him, he's a Grammy Award-winning musician. He has a Patreon, he has a Twitch. And so this token is kind of used as more of like an access or discount token. So to be able to interface with REC directly, to be able to have discounts to exclusive merchandise, things like that are kind of the base level. And what we're working on now is ways to stake that token and earn NFTs. So someone like REC has done extremely well for himself in the NFT landscape, but as we alluded to earlier, you need a lot of money to be able to buy his NFTs. And so using something like a social token, you can kind of create experiences where these smaller fans who are subscribed on Patreon can kind of participate with those tokens and be rewarded in the form of something that's unique to REC, like an NFT.
Super interesting. And I've noticed a lot of these conversations are unfolding that you've been having on Clubhouse. You've kind of become a thought leader in that space. What are your thoughts on Clubhouse and the conversations that are happening on a regular basis?
I absolutely love Clubhouse. I think it's one of the social apps that I've been most interested in at inception. The fact that it's like audio first is really beautiful to me. I think that there's a lot of like LARPing that happens on Clubhouse where you're just kind of speaking about the same topic over and over again. So I try and be really disciplined about the time that I spend on there. But I think when you have the right moderators and speakers in a room, you can have some really incredible conversations, and people who are completely new to your project or topic can learn a lot. And so I've been pushing a lot of the teams that I work with to have like, regular calls on Clubhouse. Like you saw last week, Aave had their community call on there where they had some of the team members and were bringing people on stage. I think that every project should consider having a Clubhouse room. And like for people such as myself, being disciplined about, we're going to do a room at this time with these speakers, and there's not going to be 100 people on stage. Like those setups are really, really interesting. And so, I try not to just like casually just spend 5 hours a night on Clubhouse like some other people do. But I think when it's used well and in a disciplined manner, it can be really, really powerful.
In general, we're kind of, I mean, it's debatable, but it seems like part of a bull run right now, which is what most people would agree
Debatable.
with, I think. Yeah, well, not debatable, but like just in terms of the cycle length and that kind of thing. Like,
Right.
Is it going to be on the 4-year cycle or that kind of thing? But in general, when that happens, like you said, you got into this because of price speculation. That brings probably Ulf and myself, same thing, right? That's what brings people in initially. What are your thoughts on, like, at the end of this, do you think the NFT hype will die down for a few years and then the work continues to be done kind of thing, kind of like the ICO craze of 2017, or how do you see that happening on a cyclical basis?
Yeah, I think that the how fast these NFTs are sold is going to change drastically, right? So today you can go on Nifty Gateway, everything will sell instantly. On Super, pretty much everything sells. What we're going to see very soon is that a lot of NFTs don't sell. They just kind of are sitting there with no bids on them. They can't make a strong enough case for why to collect them. And so, I imagine what's going to happen in the next 3 to 6 months is like more NFTs are going to go unsold than they go sold. And we're going to sort of see like a redistribution of wealth to like the very dedicated creators that are doing this, in the right way and have a strong community around them. A lot of creators are going to get disenfranchised by that and probably say, screw NFTs, mine aren't selling, I don't want to do this again. But I think when that happens, it opens up this opportunity for us to work on gas costs and scalability and UX. And so in 3 to 5 years, you'll come back and the opportunity to make an NFT will never be easier. And in between then, there will be, these really high caliber drops, just as we saw with Uniswap launching during the bear market in 2018. There's going to be examples of that in crypto where creators are launching their first NFTs in a bear market, but they're going to be regarded as some of the best creators in the space.
Speaking to NFTs and social tokens kind of combined, as far as I understand, are you familiar with the whale token and what that's all about? Can you maybe tell for our audience, like, what is the whale token? How does that work? And how does it differentiate from the general, NFTs we've been talking about?
Yeah, so Whale Shark Pro is one of the biggest NFT collectors there is. He has a vault that's currently worth like $30 million of some of the best NFTs in the space. And what he did is he made a social token that was backed by the NFTs. And so basically this gave the social token some sort of like formal value because you knew that there was some sort of collateral behind it that was really valuable. And so I remember being in the Whale Discord the day that that token launched, and I've never seen people like more excited about it. He was doing these airdrops where if you reacted to an emoji, you got some whale tokens, and he would just like post it, and there would be like thousands of people just spamming all these emojis and stuff. And it was like such a cool experience. I think one thing that I really love about Whale is how organized his community is. So he has moderators that are being paid in Whale. They do HR meetings, they do performance reviews, and like, the way he set that up, like I said before, social tokens are largely like playful in nature, but examples like Whale are people that are like treating this as a serious business endeavor. And I think for that reason, those projects will have longevity that goes far and beyond this bull cycle, especially in the light of, when the bear market hits, a lot of social tokens are going to be the first to get wiped out. Like, I hate to say it, but that's just the reality. And so like something like Whale that has like a very organized and disciplined group of supporters is going to be really well suited, especially, through thick and thin.
Cooper, this has been an awesome conversation. We've really learned a lot, and we like to end every episode of Show Me the Crypto with a 3-question segment called You Had Me at Crypto. So I'm just going to ask you those.
All right, Cooper. First question. Who's your favorite person to follow in the crypto space?
Wow, just one person, huh? I mean, honestly, like maybe not as much like crypto specific, but like I think Naval is a fantastic account on Twitter. The way that he presents ideas, and especially now with him talking about crypto more recently, it's been a good way to sort of stimulate good thought. And his tweets are rare, but they're always really fantastic. If I had to kind of give like a crypto specific one, my friend Ryan Watkins, I'm sorry, has some really amazing stuff. He's an analyst and he reports about things in a very concrete manner. He has a lot of these research reports that dive into like crypto topics that are really convoluted, but have really interesting like thesis behind them. And so being able to like read these tweet storms that are highly informational, and add a lot of value, I think is great. And if I had to give one more off the top of my head, DCL blogger Maddie is like fantastic to follow for everything in the NFT space. He does threads on NFTs almost daily at this point. And so, highly recommend checking him out.
Awesome. What will the price of Bitcoin be 10 years from now?
$1 million at least.
That's a popular answer.
Yeah,
That's the popular answer. I love it.
What's the most underrated coin or project in crypto?
Oh, am I allowed to say Audius?
You're not allowed to say your own project.
I think Index Co-op right now. It's a DeFi project that's managing DeFi indexes, so it allows people to get involved with these complex sectors without having to do like a deep dive. So they had actually created this thing called the DeFi Pulse Index. So for people who aren't familiar, you might have heard of DeFi. You don't know what Aave is, you don't know what Uniswap is. You can kind of buy one token that's a catch-all bet on everything. And I think that this platform that's creating multiple of those, like an NFT index or a social token index, I think that project will be pretty popular and is pretty low cap right now for the shitcoiners of the world that are listening out there.
Yeah, we interviewed Anthony Sassano, as you know, and he's part of the set team and had a lot to say on DPI and what they're doing over at Index Co-op. So that was a good conversation. If you're listening and you want to check that out, go check out that episode. Awesome. Well, hey, this has been a great episode. It's been awesome talking to you about NFTs. We've really appreciated your time today. Thanks a lot, Cooper.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm excited to listen back to it.
Thank you for listening to Show Me the Crypto. Please make sure to subscribe as well as rate and review this podcast.